Well, as many of you know, we just finished wrapping up some business in Washington. I have to say, after spending a few days in Washington, I always love Indiana, but Indiana is always 10 times greater after spending a few days in Washington, D.C. Well, the man I'm about to introduce here today, I have the privilege of introducing, also loves the great state of Indiana. I first met Mike Pence when I ran for Congress back in 2010. We served together just one term, but he served in the neighboring district, comes from a great family. He's a man of principle, of deep conviction, a man of faith, and a man that I observe always lives by the dictum and campaigns by the dictum that first you win the argument and then you win the vote. You know, Mike Pence always answers the call to duty. He answered the call to duty when he came home back to Indiana and decided to run for governor and keep the momentum going, created by so many of our great Republican leaders. More recently, just a few months ago, during this crazy political summer, Mike Pence answered the call of duty once again. You see, Mike Pence understands that we cannot have a liberal U.S. Supreme Court, and we cannot have another 4 years of the Obama-Clinton policy. And he is the right man for the moment. We all knew this when he was tapped, but America is beginning to know it. And I have to say personally, anyone who's raised by a United States Marine and who has raised their own United States Marine is okay with me. He's Indiana's secret Republican weapon. And the secret's out. I wouldn't like to be that guy from Virginia who's going to face him Tuesday night in a debate. In a business where friendships are not always deep, Mike Pence is a true friend. He's a colleague. And on January 17th, after you send me to the United States Senate, I can't wait to look up and see Mike Pence as your next vice president presiding over the U.S. Senate. Fellow Hoosiers, it is with great excitement, great humility, it is with great privilege that I am able to present to you the next Vice President of the United States. Let's give a nice warm Hoosier welcome to Mike Pence.
Wonderful to be with you all, with the next great senator from the state of Indiana, Todd Young, everybody. And you'll hear more about this in a minute, but I got to tell you, the opportunity my family and I have comes with great confidence that we will be followed in the State House by the next great Republican Governor of the state of Indiana, Eric Holcomb. And Congressman Marlin Stutzman, thank you. How about, let's hear it for Congressman Marlin Stutzman for his outstanding leadership for so many years. And what can you say about Pat Miller that he hasn't said about himself? I just love this guy. I'll tell you, he is an Indiana treasure. Would you thank Pat Miller for me? We're just so glad to see you doing so well. Thank you. It means a lot. For all of you gathered here today, it is wonderful, wonderful to be home, to see so many familiar faces here in the great Hoosier State. It's humbling for me to think that just a few short months ago, I accepted my party's invitation to run and serve as the next Vice President of the United States of America. And I have to tell you, as I stand in the Hoosier State, I know that I stand in this position as much because of all of you, because of the leadership that you've supported here in the state of Indiana. It has anything to do with my small life. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm also grateful for that wonderful introduction by Congressman Todd Young. But he knows me well enough to know the introduction I prefer is a little bit shorter. I'm a Christian, a conservative, and a Republican in that order. But I'm here to talk to you about the business at hand, here in Indiana and all across the country. And I'm here to tell you that when that phone call came, it was 11 o'clock, I was at the governor's residence in Indianapolis. We heard that it might come. We prayed through it. We talked through it with our kids. I remember picking up that phone kind of nervously. I heard that familiar voice on the other end of the line. And he said, "Mike, it's going to be great." And boy, has it been. Campaign. My fellow Hoosiers, I joined this campaign in a heartbeat because you have nominated a man for president who never quits, who never backs down. He is a fighter. He is a winner. And until very recently, it seemed like he was out there fighting all on his own. But now this movement is coming together. This party is coming together. This country is coming together. We're going to make Donald Trump next president of the United States of America. People back home, people say to me, "So, what is it about Donald Trump?" And, I'm from south of Highway 40, so I speak a little plainly down that way. And I just tell people, Donald Trump gets it. You know what I mean? He's the genuine article. And I truly do believe Donald Trump, to know the man is to know someone who literally embodies the spirit of America. Strong, freedom-loving, independent, optimistic, and willing to fight every day for what he believes in and for the American people. He's a doer. He's a doer in a game usually reserved for talkers. And when he does his talking, he doesn't go tiptoeing around all those rules of political correctness that the media puts in the way of men and women that want to make a difference. He speaks from his mind. He speaks from his heart. The American people hear him loud and clear, and they're going to send him straight to the White House. I'll tell you, it's been kind of fun to watch at times. It really has been. The party in power seems helpless to figure out our nominee, my running mate. They really do sometimes. And of course, I'm referring to the media, right? All right, thanks a lot. Right? The media and the Democrats, they seem helpless to figure him out. They all keep telling each other the usual methods, The usual methods are going to work against him. Now we got him. He said this. He tweeted that. They think they finally got him right where they want him, and then they turn on the TV the next morning, and Donald Trump is still standing strong, fighting for the American people. And he's going to carry that fight all the way to the White House. But I've gotten to know this good man. And I'll tell you what, he's a guy that loves his family and he loves his country. And he's someone who's never forgotten the men and women who built this country. People in this country who work with their hands, who grow the food, who build our roads and bridges. To know Donald Trump is really to know a man who at his very core is a builder. He sees a vacant lot and he thinks a skyscraper. He really does. And he's never forgotten the people that really do the work, that tend to our sick, that teach our kids. And I'll tell you what in particular. Donald Trump will never forget or fail to support the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement. there's a lot of members of the law enforcement community here now in County and Fort Wayne in the state of Indiana. Before you sit down, would you just show these law enforcement officers in these challenging times how much we appreciate what they and their families do to protect our families? I just promise you, as a Chief Law Enforcement Officer of the United States of America, a President Donald Trump will never fail to recognize that the men and women in law enforcement in this country are a force for good. They are the best of us, and he will ensure that they have the resources and the tools to protect our families and go home safely. You know, this election is about a choice, and I wanted to run up here to Fort Wayne to talk about that choice, both in the Hoosier State and that we as Americans face. And it really is amazing what the other side has come up with. At the very moment that America is crying out for something new and different, the other party has answered with a stale agenda and the most predictable of names. And people in both parties are restless for change. And the Democratic Party has literally nominated someone who personifies the failed status quo in Washington, D.C. So I want to say to my fellow Hoosiers, if you want change, if you want a stronger America at home and abroad that stands by our Constitution and the highest standards in public life, we have to decide here and now in the Hoosier State that Hillary Clinton will never be elected President of the United States. Despite the avalanche of insults coming out of their campaign, this campaign really is about issues of enormous importance in the life of this nation. That's why I answered the call when it came that night. And it's why we need to make sure that the state of Indiana does our part to lead the way. I want Indiana, this is my request, as we've done so many times before, I want Indiana to be the first state on the board to elect Donald Trump as the 45th President of the United States of America. Can we do that? Number one, 601. The issues in this campaign are real and of enormous consequence in the life of the nation. They are about our security. They're about prosperity. It's about the Supreme Court, and it's about ensuring the highest standards of integrity are in the highest office in the land. On the front of security, I just have to tell you, it grieves my heart to think that 7.5 years of Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's policies have weakened America's place in the world and emboldened the enemies of this country. Terrorist attacks at home and abroad, attempted coup among allies. I mean, if you looked at a picture of a map of the wider Middle East, the day that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton took over American foreign policy, and you took a picture of a map today, it would look like the same part of the world. You know, history teaches us that weakness arouses evil. And I would submit to you, my fellow Hoosiers, that Hillary Clinton, the architect of Barack Obama's foreign policy, that Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama's foreign policy of leading from behind, moving red lines, feigning resets with Russia, and paying ransom to terrorist-sponsoring states is the very image of weakness on the world stage. Let me make you a promise. When Donald Trump becomes President of the United States, we won't be paying ransom to terrorists or terrorist-sponsoring states. They'll be paying the price. They'll be paying the price if they threaten the American people or threaten our allies. And the truth of the matter is, specifically to Hillary Clinton, it's important that we talk about the record. And I'm looking forward to that debate on Tuesday night. This election is about, it is about a choice. And people need to think really hard about the record that Hillary Clinton brings on the foreign stage. We hear about her great experience on the foreign stage. But remember this: it was Hillary Clinton. It was Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State who supported Barack Obama's efforts to withdraw all U.S. forces from Operation Iraqi Freedom without a new status of forces agreement, without leaving a single combat troop in Iraq. It created the very vacuum in which ISIS was able to rise up and overrun the gains that the American soldier and the families of our soldiers had won at enormous sacrifice. It's extraordinary. I mean, before I move on, I have to pause and ask, for those of you who are able to stand, who've worn the uniform of the United States of America, would you just please stand or raise your hand and allow us to thank you one more time?